Yes, I think the Republican nominee is unfit to serve as president. I said so last week, and he keeps on proving it. The notion that he would attack a Gold Star family that had made such extraordinary sacrifices on behalf of our country. The fact that he doesn't appear to have basic knowledge around critical issues in Europe, in the Middle East, in Asia, means that he's woefully unprepared to do this job. And this is not just my opinion. I think what's been interesting is the repeated denunciations of his statements by leading Republicans, including the Speaker of the House and the Senate Majority Leader and prominent Republicans like John McCain. And the question I think that they have to ask themselves is, if you are repeatedly having to say in very strong terms that what he has said is unacceptable, why are you still endorsing him? What does this say about your party that this is your standard bearer? This isn't a situation where you have an episodic gaffe. This is daily and weekly, where they are distancing themselves from statements he's making. There has to be a point at which you say, this is not somebody I can support for President of the United States. Even if he purports to be a member of my party. And the fact that that has not yet happened makes some of these denunciations ring hollow. I don't doubt their sincerity. I don't doubt that they were outraged about some of the statements that Mr. Trump and his supporters made about the Khan family. But there has to come a point at which you say, somebody who makes those kinds of statements doesn't have the judgment, the temperament, the understanding to occupy the most powerful position in the world. Because a lot of people depend on the White House getting stuff right. And this is different than just having policy disagreements. I recognize that they all profoundly disagree with myself or Hillary Clinton on tax policy or on certain elements of foreign policy. But there have been Republican presidents with whom I disagreed with, but I didn't have a doubt that they could function as president. I think I was right and Mitt Romney and John McCain were wrong on certain policy issues, but I never thought that they couldn't do the job. And had they won, I would have been disappointed. But I would have said to all Americans, this is our president, and I know they're going to abide by certain norms and rules and common sense, will observe basic decency, will have enough knowledge about economic policy and foreign policy and our constitutional traditions and rule of law, that our government will work. And then we'll compete 4 years from now to try to win an election. But that's not the situation here. And that's not just my opinion. That is the opinion of many prominent Republicans. There has to come a point at which you say, enough. And the alternative is that the entire party, the Republican Party, effectively endorses and validates the positions that are being articulated by Mr. Trump. And as I said in my speech last week, I don't think that actually represents the views of a whole lot of Republicans out there.
Hey, awesome YouTube family. I am still alive and kicking. Thanks so much for your prayers, as I have had to take a break from doing videos and the regular routine and such, but I am on the mend and I will be back in the saddle very soon, but I really appreciate your continued prayers. I really felt the need to do a video regarding the speech Obama made earlier this week. He really is taking major swipes at Donald Trump yet again, and I do not back either Trump or Hillary Clinton. I am a Canadian from Mississauga, Ontario, but even as Canadians, we strongly follow American politics as well, apart from Canadian politics. And I just gotta say, it seems like the political arena has really changed into such a circus. It's just getting worse and worse, and the lies and the rhetoric that are coming from all of these people are really just pointing to one thing, and that is just the absolute corruption of the system. And so I really wanted to address some of the things that Obama felt the need to address or vent about Trump, acting like he's so unstable, acting like he has no basic knowledge of critical issues, and claiming that other people in the Republican Party are against Trump. And I'm not saying that there's not some truth to what Obama is, saying, but I also believe that Obama is extremely hypocritical. Now, all of us are definitely not immune to being a hypocrite at some times in our life, but honestly, Obama, to me, has no right to talk, especially after a lot of the nonsense that he has pulled himself. Now, talking about critical issues, Obama wants to say that Donald Trump doesn't have basic knowledge of critical issues. But what I find interesting is that, to me, as someone that is really, doesn't know much about economy, you would think that this would be something that would be a big deal to a president or a prime minister of a country. But, I'm going to go through many headlines and not necessarily go into everything that the articles are saying, otherwise we'll be here forever. But basically, in this first article I'd like to show you from US News, basically speaks of how Obama, once reluctant to hype the US economy's slow climb out of recession, President Barack Obama now is in cheerleader mode. So this is from March 4th of 2016, and he basically refuses to admit that the economy is in bad shape. He thinks that, according to Obama, America is pretty darn great right now. He told reporters that he celebrated strong jobs reports and said that he proving that the Republicans' doomsday rhetoric is a little more than fantasy. So, this is what Obama claims, really this fantasy world that this man seems to live in. But the reality, according to Trump, is that 42% of Americans are unemployed. Okay, so if you look at some of the trends down here, you'll see that the real story is that many Americans are on food stamps, many Americans are out of work, and I tend to believe that. I've been hearing reports from other people showing that the real unemployment rate in America is extremely high, 42%, millions of people. I've heard that 90 million people in America are out of work and that there are millions on food stamps. And again, I will leave links to these articles. I'm not going to go into them in detail, but really, again, for Obama to say that Trump lacks knowledge of basic critical issues, I think is really quite interesting. I got another article here talking about how the national debt has nearly doubled since Obama took the presidency. Apparently it was about 10.6 trillion or something like that. Here we go. When Obama took over in January 2009, the total national debt stood at 10.6 trillion. Now that's, to me, since the entire existence of the United States of America, it got to 10.6 trillion when Obama took office. So in only his 8 years in office, that has literally doubled. So the entire time that the United States of America has been around, which is, obviously 240 years, in only 8 years of that, the national debt of the United States of America has doubled to 20 trillion. So talk about having a basic lack of knowledge on critical issues. Why is it that the debt has just skyrocketed in Obama's time? Then we've got, his famous cry when talking about gun orders and all that kind of nonsense. We all know how he, swiped the tear and, put on quite the show in front of many people talking about gun control, back in January. So really, again, Obama wants to deal with gun violence. He wants to blame, all the shootings on, gun control and saying that people shouldn't have assault rifles and this and this. But in reality, the criminals are always going to have the guns. Taking away guns from peace-loving Americans and people who own guns legally is not going to stop any of these shootings. And by the way, I honestly believe that these are false flags perpetrated by Obama's government and the elite themselves. So really, Obama is one to talk because, if you look at some of the statements he has made, he has been quoted as saying, "We're sending assault weapons to rebels in Syria to confront a regime that does not represent them." But on the other hand, he'll say there is no reason why any American should own assault weapons. So he has no qualm sending all kinds of weapons over to Syria, over to the Middle East, claiming that it's going to be the way to stabilize things, and just keep sending weapons. Even Hillary herself has been sending and authorizing weapons to go over there. But yet, he wants to take away weapons from his own people. Now, how does that have show us that Obama has any credibility or any knowledge of critical issues? It doesn't seem to make any sense to me. Okay, another lack of judgment and critical issues is that he defends the transgender bathroom law, that he is basically making states obey this, and we know that he has put this order that allows public schools to have bathrooms open to transgender students. So anyone of the gender they identify with that day, basically is they can go into that washroom, and that seems to apply to even many businesses according to this law. Obama has opened up the bathrooms. Now, again, if he had any any knowledge of critical issues, he would know that this opens up the door to predators, to molesters, preying on children, preying on young women and girls, and even little boys. So again, how can he say that Trump lacks basic knowledge of critical issues when it clearly seems to me that Obama clearly lacks knowledge of critical issues himself, probably even more so in this fantasy world. Another fantasy of his is this whole climate change that he's been trying to sell us on, for many years, and many of the world, basically much of the world has jumped onto this bandwagon. Obama in 2015 claims that no challenge poses a greater threat to future generations than climate change. Okay, what is real fascinating is that it has been proven time and again by real science that climate change is a farce, that greenhouse gases and carbon emissions is something that the world or the earth actually needs. And the amount of carbon emissions is a very, very extremely low percent of what they're claiming it to be. So it is something that we actually need. They actually want to they go as far as basically saying that it's human beings' fault for breathing, that we have all these carbon emissions and whatever other nonsense that they're saying. It is a total farce. The earth actually goes through these changes every so often, and there's nothing wrong with it, but it is yet again a Luciferian Gael worship kind of nonsense that he has been propagating for many years and pushing on to us. So again, a fantasy, a lie. How does Barack Obama have any basic knowledge of critical issues if he's pushing this kind of nonsense? And at the same time, he will also veto legislation repealing Obamacare, defunding that, which would have defunded Planned Parenthood. But they wanted to pass a law basically to defund Planned Parenthood, but Obama vetoed that. So again, if he claims that, again, climate change, for the children, here's another quote by him saying, "But for the sake of our children and our future, we must do more to combat climate change." So he's saying for the sake of our children, but really, if he loved children, why is he okay with Planned Parenthood that basically, mutilates and aborts fetuses? The child, I believe that a child is a life right from the moment of conception, and that abortion should not be happening. And, this Planned Parenthood taking the fetus, taking that baby, and then using its body parts, all this kind of nonsense that Planned Parenthood is doing. If Obama truly cared for children, why is he okay with Planned Parenthood? That doesn't make any sense at all. Yet again, a total contradiction. Yet again, a basic lack of critical issues, I would say, on Obama's part. Okay, another thing that's interesting is that Obama, again, talking about climate change as an act of defiance against the Islamic State. Really? Like, to be honest with you, how is combating climate change an act of defiance against against the Islamic State. And on this article from November 30th, 2015, President Obama is like a beautiful sunrise. Each morning he astonishes anew, except that the sunrise is beautiful and President Obama is simply stupid. So really, I mean, that's quite, the statement to make, and I have to agree with that. Is like it's utter stupidity to think that, fighting climate change is an act of defiance against the Islamic State. Like saying, oh, look, ISIS, we're going to go fight climate change. So, it's really sending a message to you. You know what? It's just all nonsense. We know that ISIS is a creation of the CIA, a creation of the United States of America, and of, many of the world elites. And so him making this kind of statement is just, again, bold-faced lying and just, leading the people astray as per the norm with good old Barack Obama. He also had the audacity to say that Trump does not respect the rule of law. Whereas if Obama truly respected the rule of law, why is it that Hillary Clinton, his buddy, is getting off, something that she should have been charged? We know that people like sorry, I can't remember the name, Snowden, would have been definitely charged for something similar. Anybody else for, these careless things that Hillary Clinton did would have been charged and thrown in jail. But yet, good old Hillary, the Democratic frontrunner, and obviously is the nominee now, she is getting off scot-free, proving that the ruling elite are immune to the laws, that the laws are only there for the general public. They do not seem to pertain to the ruling elite class whatsoever. So again, if Obama cared for the rule of law, as he seems to insinuate that Donald Trump doesn't, why is it that Hillary Clinton is not being prosecuted? All right. And again, when it comes to even the migrant crisis, his buddies like George Soros, he openly admits that he is funding this. He has confirmed he wants to bring down Europe's borders following accusations, and he is driven for the sake of weakening nations, that he wants to collapse borders, that people like George Soros and people like Obama and that kind of class of people, they want to collapse borders because they want to bring in their one world Luciferian new world order. That is the end game. That is the plan. So again, how is that lawful? How is it abiding by the laws? If you want to tear down countries, if you want to tear down their borders, that doesn't sound to me as a law-abiding citizen or anyone who has respect for the rule of law. Again, Hillary getting off, no law for her. George Soros and the elites talking about funding this migrant crisis, talking about funding BLM and all that kind of nonsense. How do these people have any respect for the rule of law? Then, of course, we've gotten, Obama's many famous executive orders that he has signed, and we have addressed this one before, that he signed back in March of 2012, the National Defense Resource Preparedness Plan. And this basically is an executive order that gives the president the right to basically enslave people. It takes control of all natural resources, of transportation, of agriculture, of medicine, what have you. Basically, the president is able to control all kinds of resources, everything at his disposal, should he call an emergency situation in war or in peacetime. Okay, so there you go. It can be in peacetime or in national emergency. It doesn't matter. He can invoke this whenever he wants to. All right, so this is one that we spoke about earlier. Then, of course, the one he passed through on July the 1st of this year, which basically authorizes military force against civilians, of talking about, minimizing civilian casualties as much as possible. I've also heard reports, I believe, from Lisa Haven and others talking about how Obama has also authorized the UN to use deadly force with their peacekeepers against American citizens and the like. So, I mean, you can see what is coming here. There's definitely, this is to me definitely unconstitutional. So if Obama wants to say that Trump has no respect for the rule of law, how is it that Obama can sign even executive orders into law that are totally unconstitutional and, in my opinion, are completely lawless? Okay, then he has the audacity to talk about other Republicans like Paul Ryan, like John McCain. He would say stuff like, oh, if John McCain, got elected back when he was running against Obama in the 2008 election, that he wouldn't have been happy, but, he would still call him the president. He had no doubt that he could do the job. He had, no doubts about Paul Ryan or no doubts about Mitt Romney and all those other candidates that were the Republicans back then. But the funny thing is that Obama has no problem calling them calling them the president, because they're all Luciferians just like him. They're all part of the same establishment. I believe that people like Obama and McCain and Ryan and all these people, even though they're from different parties, I believe they're all buddies in the background. They're all, basically playing all of us. And, I honestly believe that Trump is also, yet again, one of the players. They're all just playing their role and all saying what they need to say. It's all a script. It's all an act. I honestly don't believe any of them are being genuine. And Michael Snyder had a good article on August the 4th, sometime last week, talking about if Barack Obama, or will he try to stay in office if Donald Trump wins the election. And he makes some very valid points here, because he also talks about Obama's language, the rhetoric coming from Obama, saying that he stated that Trump is unfit to serve as president, that he's woefully unprepared to do this job. Okay, so I wouldn't be surprised either if Obama comes up with some kind of false flag event. Is the false flag of or the mother of false flags coming very soon? And then he quotes stuff from another article from Joseph Farr of WND, saying that he said Trump would not abide by norms and rules and common sense. He questioned whether he would observe basic decency should he reach the Oval Office. He said he would have been disappointed to lose the elections of 2008 and 2012, but never doubted whether his rivals in those elections, John McCain and Mitt Romney, could function as president or had the knowledge to make government work. That's not the situation here, he added. He added Trump doesn't have the judgment, the temperament, the understanding to occupy the most powerful position in the world. He said he was woefully unprepared to do this job. Obama said Trump lacked knowledge about Europe, the Middle East, and other parts of Asia. Okay, and Michael Snyder goes on to say this is some really strong, extreme language. So will Barack Obama try to stay in office if Donald Trump wins this election? And, I have to, ask that question myself. Is something going to happen where he tries to pull martial law, where a major false flag is launched so that Obama can declare martial law, which, causes a national emergency, all this kind of nonsense? Is that what this is going to come down to? Will Obama peacefully give up powers if someone like Donald Trump were to win the election? And, what I would like to show you is another article about the DNC, the crazy things that were taking place there. And before I go into some of these articles, take a listen to this clip from Rick Wiles of True News, and he had some quite interesting things to say about what was happening at the DNC. Just take a listen.
Here is end-time newsman Rick Wiles.
The grand coronation of Hillary Clinton in Philadelphia is in chaos on day one of the 2016 Democratic Convention. Hours before the gavel is pounded to call the convention to order, top Democratic Party officials took a pounding from angry Bernie Sanders delegates. The rebellion started early today when Florida Democrats booed Florida Democratic Congresswoman and chairwoman of the Democratic National Committee, Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Miss Wasserman Schultz was introduced to speak to the delegation. She was given a rowdy reception by angry Sanders supporters. As numerous delegates stood in the ballroom holding signs that said emails, the booing and catcalls continued throughout her short speech. At one point, the chairwoman of the Florida Delegation Caucus had to interrupt Wasserman Schultz's speech to ask the delegates to calm down. But as soon as the DNC chairwoman tried to continue her speech, the booing and catcalls resumed. Many people shouted, "Shame." Debbie Wasserman Schultz eventually gave up and walked out of the room. This is what it sounded like this morning inside the Florida Democratic Caucus.
Let's be respectful. Please be quiet so Debbie can speak. It's okay. Everybody, let's hear from our speakers. We have other speakers as well.
Thank you all so much. me in acknowledging that we had a tragic shooting in Fort Myers just yesterday, where there were children who were in harm's way and people lost their lives. We know something. We know something in Florida about making sure that we can have the voices across our state heard.
Well, discontent with the party's establishment also flared in a breakfast meeting of the California delegation. This time it was House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi, California Secretary of State Alex Padilla, Congresswoman Barbara Lee, and Congressman Michael Honda, who were booed by angry Bernie Sanders delegates. Whenever a speaker talked about uniting the Democratic Party to elect Hillary Clinton, the Sanders delegates booed loudly. At one point, a Bernie Sanders sign was thrust into Nancy Pelosi's face, but she remained calm. This is what it sounded like today in the California delegation.
From the Republicans so that the people's house will return to the people. Are you ready for California to lead the way to let Democratic victory? Onward to victory.
In contrast, the Republican Party convention went off smoothly last week, despite Senator Ted Cruz's refusal to endorse Donald Trump. Unlike the Sanders supporters who are angry with Mrs. Clinton, the Republican delegates booed Ted Cruz for dividing the party. It was Ted Cruz who left the stage to the roar of thousands of angry delegates and observers chanting, "Endorse Trump." Overall, Donald Trump left Cleveland last Thursday with a unified Republican Party ready for battle with Hillary Clinton and the Democrats. On the opening day of the Republican convention in Cleveland last Monday, Democratic National Committee Chairwoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz tweeted to her Republican Party counterpart, Reince Priebus, "Hey, Reince, I'm in Cleveland. If you need another chair to help keep your convention in order." My hunch is that little Debbie regrets ever tweeting that sarcastic message. As the Democratic Party convention opens today in Philadelphia, Debbie Wasserman Schultz doesn't even have a chair. The Democratic Party chairwoman was forced to resign over the weekend as the leader of the Democratic Party. The opening of the 2016 Democratic Convention is in disarray because WikiLeaks released a massive data dump of 19,000 plus emails that hackers obtained from Democratic Party computers. The emails show that Donald Trump was right. The Democratic Party primary contest was rigged against Bernie Sanders. DNC officials worked behind the scenes throughout 2015 and 16 to sabotage the Sanders campaign and to give Hillary Clinton insider advantages. Party officials also colluded with top journalists in the establishment news media.
Okay, so you heard some of the chaos literally that was going on there at that DNC. It really didn't seem like things were going too well. Of course, the media wants to make it seem like everything was so hunky-dory with Hillary, that everyone's in love with Hillary. They want to, make her seem like she's such a hero. But really, if you look at some of the underground news that are really talking about the truth, it says that the question I hope everyone who booed Hillary Clinton at the DNC asked themselves Okay, and no, it has nothing to do with Donald Trump. So many people were booing Hillary. Many people were talking about, who the people who were actually there were saying that she's a liar, were bringing up all kinds of things, and here this person says, I was there in the arena of the Wells Fargo Center in Philadelphia when a woman accepted the nomination of a major American political party for a president. But don't envy me for witnessing history, because that's not really how it felt. Okay, and she talks about how Hillary seemed to do well with delivering her speech, and she delivered the speech fluidly. The crowd's enthusiasm seemed to boil over into spontaneous chants of Hillary. The speech ended with a spectacle that included not only more balloons than Bill Clinton or anyone else had seen, but fireworks. But in the arena, Clinton couldn't hold the audience. It wasn't hers to hold. There were just too many pockets of dissent and rejection. Chants of no more war and no TPP felt liable to erupt at any moment. The back of the California delegation booed for 20 or 30 seconds at a time. What sounded on TV like oddly timed Hillary and USA chants were usually attempts by Clinton supporters to drown out attempted disruptions. In the arena, you'd hear a buzzing undercurrent for a few seconds, then an overstrident Hillary chant surged dutifully to meet it. So it seems like there was a major battle going on within the crowd. There were people that were majorly booing. I believe many Bernie Sanders supporters were booing Hillary, and many others as well. I believe many delegates were even booing Hillary. And just to cover it up, people were trying to shout over that to cheer for Hillary. But really, there was quite the division going on in that arena. Pockets of Bernie Sanders supporters in day-glow t-shirts refused to participate in the card stunt at the end of the speech. Cards distributed to audience members was supposed to turn the audience into a living bunting of red and white. It ended up looking like an awning someone had tried to deface with a highlighter. The interruptions weren't constant, but they were frequent enough. Even after one round of boos subsided, it was hard to return attention to the speech instead of bracing for the next one. The arena never felt uncontrolled, in a literal sense, but despite the amount of energy the Democratic Party poured into the spectacle, the dissenters managed to single jam the vibe. And here is what I found real interesting about this article. It's ironic that Clinton's speech felt a lot more momentous on television than it did to those of us who were in the room. So basically, if you were watching this on TV, it would have seemed, much better. It would have seemed like Hillary, nailed it. It would have seemed like everyone was on board, and that the entire DNC was, ecstatic about the fact of Hillary getting nominated. But if you were actually there in the room at the Wells Fargo Center in Philadelphia, it was a totally different story. Okay, and I wouldn't be surprised that this has happened. I mean, there's even footage of that, and I believe there's major dissension going on within the Democratic Party. I believe people are upset that Hillary got the nomination. Even another underground source from the Daily Caller talking about Hillary's name booed at the DNC. Okay, so it says at the start of the Democratic basically DNC on Monday, when Chair Marcia Fudge mentioned Hillary Clinton's name, the crowd promptly booed. The booing of Clinton's name at the start of the convention wasn't the only instance of booing of the Democratic nominee. Earlier in the day, former Democratic Committee Chair Rep. Debbie Wasserman Schultz was jeered during her speech to the Florida delegation. Okay, and then later Bernie Sanders was booed after he said, "We have got to elect Hillary Clinton as president." And I remember people covering that. Many millennials and young people were totally for Bernie Sanders. They were so saddened to see that he didn't get the nomination. Really, I believe that Bernie Sanders was the one I believe deserved that nomination. But obviously, this system is corrupt, and the fact that Bernie's trying to come out there to get people to vote for Hillary, I mean, how much more of a player or of a crooked system can this be, where the other person who just lost the nomination is coming out and doing this? I feel bad for Bernie, but probably he's being made to do this, and people just do not like this. And there were many boos and all kinds of chaos going on at this DNC. So what is truly going on? Because the media is showing us that Hillary's doing so well in the polls, that she's, at 46%. This is according to the New York Times. Donald Trump's at 39%. And really, is this even real? Because, according to, underground news sources, people that were actually there at the DNC, they're saying that it was, there was so much division, there was so much of booing. People are, basically enraged that Clinton, who is a criminal, who is a known criminal now, who the FBI did not prosecute and should have prosecuted, now she is being shown to be leading in the polls. So my question is, are the polls even faked? I believe the polls could possibly be rigged, that I'm sure that this is not even a true picture. I believe Rick Wiles at True News believes that Trump is actually leading like crazy in the polls, maybe even up to 70%. Now, I'm not sure whether that's an exaggeration or what the true number is, but I believe that the media could possibly be making it seem that Hillary is leading in the polls just to get it into people's minds that, oh, Hillary is leading, so you might as well vote for her. But really, this is exactly who the establishment want, is this crook, this criminal Hillary. But again, I'm not saying I back Trump or Hillary. I believe they're all puppets. I believe they're all playing us. I do not believe in any of these people. I believe that literally whoever we vote for, whether it's in Canada or America, I believe that if you vote for the Conservatives, they, literally forward the agenda on one side, of the elites, and if you vote in the Democrats, the Liberals, they obviously forward the other side of the agenda. So they're all basically working together. And the reason I say that is I believe the entire world is a stage. I believe we're all being played. Many of us remember Newt Gingrich coming on one of his shows and saying how Donald Trump is an outsider, claiming that he's not part of the secret societies or the initiated ones as all of these other people, within the political establishment are. But, go figure, many of us know about the Illuminati card game. Of course, there just happens to be a card about Newt Gingrich and talking about, as long as Newt is part of any power structure, the Newt world order is in effect. All right. So basically, it seems like Newt Gingrich is someone that it comes on and has obviously power and has, is involved in some of these things. So the fact that he gave that speech regarding Donald Trump, claiming that he's an outsider, possibly we're being lied to yet again. I believe that, these Illuminati cards have predicted a lot of things, and I believe there's a lot more to come. If you dig into a lot of these cards, many people on YouTube have done some great videos exposing these Illuminati cards, and I would encourage you to check out this Illuminati card game. Of course, there happens to be a card with seemingly Donald Trump on it. You've got this, purple face character, which seems identical to Donald Trump. Enough is enough, which is pretty much the rhetoric that Donald Trump talks about, that he wants to make America great again, and that enough with the corruption, enough with all the, the open borders and the immigration, and enough with the, all the other, corruption that is going on in the government. So, Trump talks quite the talk, but is he yet just another pawn in the game, just yet another player? I believe that to be true, because if there's an Illuminati card for Newt Gingrich, which I think foreshadows him talking about, Trump, or claiming that Trump is not an insider or an initiated part of the secret societies, then you've got a card that seemingly is about Donald Trump, raising up all kinds of craziness and demanding that things need to be changed. We've also got Illuminati cards, featuring Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton, showing that it was Hillary, truly controlling Bill, and all this kind of stuff. So yet again, you've got them also being shown in these cards. You've got good old gun control being shown in these cards, which we spoke about earlier, Obama, and even Hillary talking about gun control. And this is definitely what's coming. And of course, the card is actually one of the New World Order, cards for this Illuminati card game as part of that section. So we can see really that the New World Order is coming. These are all the rhetoric that is being pushed with all the, false flags, Sandy Hook, San Bernardino, Orlando shootings, Brussels bombings, the Dallas shooting recently. I mean, the list just goes on, and all these false flags are being used to push gun control right according to the Illuminati's plan. And of course, what is that going to bring in? Martial law. And of course, there is a card for that as well. All right, so we can see that this is definitely all being planned, that even though this Illuminati card game came out in 1995, how is it that they, put all these things in there? And literally, these things are all coming to pass. So definitely, they know what is going on. They've been planning this. Of course, there is a card for global warming, climate change, all the nonsense that Obama and the establishment is trying to feed us. We can definitely see that something big is coming, that the Illuminati has everything in place, that all the cards, as they say, are falling into place, and their plans are coming to fruition, or so they think. Of course, there's another one about a tidal wave. We've seen many movies, movies like The Day After Tomorrow, movies like 2012, movies like San Andreas, all kinds of movies showing destruction, tidal waves, tsunamis, earthquakes. Okay, definitely there's a Illuminati card for that as well. So really, you see what is happening here? We've got cards for so many scenarios that have either already taken place or that will take place, most likely take place in the future, all part of this Illuminati card game. We got another one for population reduction, epidemics and diseases. That is definitely part of the plan. Those of you who have studied the Georgia Guidestones know that the top commandment is to maintain a world population of 500 million, meaning that over 6.5 billion people or more will need to be exterminated so that they can have their population control. So this is all being planned. It's all in this Illuminati card game. And I honestly believe, if we look at a quote by William Shakespeare, that this is quite the truth, that all the world's a stage and all the men and women merely are players. They have their exits and their entrances, and one man is in his time plays many parts, his acts being 7 ages. So really, I believe this is what is happening. Whether it's Barack Obama, whether it's Hillary Clinton, whether it's Donald Trump, whether it's Vladimir Putin, whether it's Justin Trudeau, whether it's Saddam Hussein, whether it's what have you, all these people are playing a role. Whether it's the people in Iran, whether it's the people in North Korea, whether it's you name it. I believe all of these people are playing a role that are being given to them by the establishment, by the Luciferian elite who are on the top. And to me, this goes along. We can always bring it right back to the Bible. If we go to 1 John chapter 5, verses 18 to 21, talking about knowing the true and rejecting the false. And verse 19 is key here. It says that we know that we are of God, and the whole world lies under the sway of the wicked one. Okay, if we read the whole passage, we know that whoever is born of God does not sin, but he who has been born of God keeps himself, and the wicked one does not touch him. We know that we are of God, and the whole world lies under the sway of the wicked one. And we know that the Son of God has come and has given us an understanding that we may know him who is true, and we are in him who is true, in his Son, Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus the Christ. This is the true God and eternal life. Little children, keep yourselves from idols. So we can see that, the whole world lies under the sway of the wicked one. And I know that many Christians even don't like hearing that, but it is true. When Jesus was tempted, when Yeshua was tempted by Satan in the desert, one of the temptations was that he could give Jesus the kingdom then and there. He said to Yeshua that all of the kingdoms of the world belong to him, and that he can give them to whomever he chooses. So we know that the devil prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. We know that Lucifer has not been caged yet. His doom has not come yet. He is the one that is running this world in the background and is doing that very deceptively. He is doing that through his useful idiots, all of these world leaders and all of these people, that he is using the humans along in cahoots with his fallen angel gang and all these kind of things. This is what the devil is doing. So if we look at all of the Illuminati cards, there are tons of them, and you can Google it. Just Google Illuminati card games, all cards. You can look at all of the cards for yourself. Really, just as the saying goes, playing your cards right. I believe that, these Illuminati cards are totally showing us their plan in plain sight. And, you can call me crazy, you can call me a conspiracy theorist, you can call me whatever you want. But honestly, I believe that this is just showing and confirming that the world is a stage, just as Shakespeare has said, going along with what the Word of God has been saying for millennia, that the whole world lies under the sway of the wicked one, that it is the devil who is still the God of this world. Thankfully, Yeshua has come and defeated our sin. And, just like, the false teaching of dominion theology, we know that it is wrong. We know that Christians will not rule and reign this world. That will only happen when Yeshua comes and sets up his eternal kingdom. But until that time, this world is still under the sway of the wicked one. And all these things that are happening in the world is proof of that very fact, that the devil is running this world, and that we as Christians, our job is to spread the truth. We need to show people what is truly going on. We need to show people the truth. We need to get them into the kingdom by planting the seeds of the gospel. Obviously, it's not our job to save them, but it is our job to plant the seeds. It is our job to live by example and to warn people, because when it all boils down to this whole election that is coming up, we know that behind the scenes, Trump and Hillary, they are buddies. This is really what is going on here. Okay, and many of us have seen this picture. Many of us know that this is what is truly going on. And even though Hillary was booed at the DNC, and even though things can, be crazy with Trump as well, of course, there's been many protests against Trump. There's been a lot of violence, at his rallies as well. Trump also is famous for saying all kinds of, racist things and saying things, horribly against women. And, the things that he goes on about can also be, or are also very rude and very terrible. So both these two are really not to be trusted. I honestly believe that possibly this election is not even going to happen. I really believe that Obama and the establishment are just waiting for the time that they can cause some kind of false flag event so that they can cancel this election, bring in martial law, and bring in the New World Order, population reduction, all kinds of things that are going to happen because they want their New World Order to come. And I believe that people like Trump and Hillary could most likely be the setup people as to what is coming very soon. So please, if you do not know Yeshua, please put your trust in him. Do not trust anyone, in the establishment, the government, the world leaders. They are not out for your best interest. They are only out for themselves. They are only out to forward the agenda of the evil one, because again, just as the word of God says, the entire world lies under the sway of the wicked one. Do not be deceived. Yeshua HaMashiach says himself in Matthew 24 not to be deceived. 1 Thessalonians 5:21 says to test all things. Okay, so we are charged by God himself to have his wisdom. We need God's wisdom. James 1 says that the Lord God gives us his wisdom without finding fault. And so we need to seek God's wisdom. We need to seek his discernment because we are living in such deceptive times. And really, I believe this new world order is just around the corner. All the cards are falling into place. So please, if you do not know Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus Christ, he is the only one that can save you from this. He is the only one that can give you eternal peace and hope and satisfaction and salvation only found in Yeshua. This world will never be able to save you. None of these world leaders, nothing in this world will be able to save you. Only Yeshua HaMashiach will be able to save you. Again, I am a Canadian. I do not claim to know all of the insides and outsides of American politics or even Canadian politics for that matter. If I am reading this wrong, please feel free to, I humbly ask that you correct me if I am reading this totally the wrong way, if I am totally out to lunch, and if I am seeing this all wrong, from Obama's speech earlier on for, taking a swipe at Trump and all the nonsense that Trump says, all the nonsense that Hillary says. If I am totally out to lunch, and if I am wrong about any of this, please feel free to share that with me, because again, I do not claim to be a political expert. I just try to research things for myself and present my thoughts and my opinions and what I feel is truly going on. So again, please feel free to tell me if I am wrong about any of this, if I am crazy or whatever, but please do so in a gentle manner as much as you possibly can, because we need to be mature and civil people ourselves, especially if we are Christians. We need to conduct ourselves in a manner that is worthy of the gospel. God bless you all.
Parties are supposed to be agnostic when it comes to which candidate they like or don't like. Sure, they have personal feelings. They got to put them aside. We found out the DNC didn't put it aside, and they basically were a shadow Clinton operation.
And we have got to elect Hillary Clinton and Tim Kaine.
Hillary Clinton was born for such a time as this. Hillary Clinton and Tim Kaine want to build an economy that works for everyone, not just the people at the top. Hillary Clinton and Tim Kaine want an America where there are no barriers to opportunity, equality, or justice. Excuse me. to justice and equality by nominating Hillary Rodham Clinton as our candidate for the highest office in the land. God, you have given us wisdom. Now give us courage for the facing of this hour.
Democracy Spring, about 200 or 300 strong came marching in, and they've now taken on a level of civil disobedience to block the delegates from coming into this one particular entrance. As you can see, they are laying down in front of the entrance. They are letting police through, and the police, if you look over this way.
All right, Miguel, thank you so much. We're going to cut you off. We're going to cut you off right now. We're going to cut you off right now. We're going to cover right now. Boys to Men, Philadelphia's Own is here, and they're performing on stage.
Boys to Men going on.
To the Bernie or Bust people, you're being ridiculous.
You know, what? Listen what you did.
That you're so aggrieved that you're going to shut this thing down and basically try to ruin this as a political moment for Hillary Clinton is something.
And fellow Americans.